Alright, so in this video we're going to learn how to factor perfect square trinomials. So now it has to meet certain, or the expression has to meet certain conditions. Since it's a trinomial, of course it has to have three terms. And the other two conditions are the first and third terms have to be perfect squares, and the middle term has to be twice the product of the square roots of the first and third terms. Quite a mouthful there, but once we get into it, I think it'll be a little more easier for you. All right, these are the formulas that we use. So our perfect square trinomial looks like this, but when we factor it, it will be in the form of a binomial raised to the second power. Now first, to identify a perfect square trinomial, I have one right here. So my first and third terms are perfect squares because the square root of 4x squared is 2x. So you just take the square root of your coefficient, and the exponent has to be even, so you would just take half of the exponent to take the square root of it. If that were like an x to the 6th, then this would be 2x to the 3rd. All right. And then, of course, 9, the square root of that is 3. And so that would be considered my a and b. All right, because we've done the reverse by taking the square root of it. So let's identify this. This is my a. So let's do this. A equals 2x. And b is 3. And you could do this mentally. I'm just writing it out to show you. So a is 2x and b is 3. And that middle term has to be twice the product of the square roots. So I've taken the square root. 2x times 3 is 6x, right? It has to be twice that. So that would be 12x. 2x times 3 is 6x times 2, that is 12x. And so it meets the conditions, all right? It could be a plus or a minus, so depending on the sign, that is what we put as our final factor piece there. So it meets the requirements. And the way we factor it, we just take our a and b and plug it into that formula. So the hardest part is just identifying if it is a perfect square trinomial. So again, my a is 2x. My b is 3. Since that's a minus, I'm using this formula here. That's going to be minus 3 squared. And I have factored this perfect square trinomial. How can we check it, all right? Since this is squared, I could multiply it back through. I could write it twice. Because 2x minus 3 squared, you're multiplying it by itself, right? So we could check it. 2x times 2x, 4x squared. 2x times negative 3, negative 6x. Negative 3 times 2x, negative 6x. I'm just using a distributive property here. All right. And then negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. And combining my like terms in the middle here, that gives me what I had originally. And so if you can identify if it is a perfect square trinomial, you will simply just plug it into your a and b into the formula, and there you have it. All right, so I have 3 problems here that I would like for you to try. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see if you can factor these 3 expressions here. All right, so these are your answers here. The first one was a perfect square trinomial, x plus 2 squared. The second one, I threw one in there that was not actually a perfect square trinomial. Although the first and third terms were perfect squares, if you multiply their square roots, the square root of 9x squared is 3x, the square root of 4 is 2, you get 6x. You want it to be twice that. So that middle term should have been 12x if it were to meet the requirements for a perfect square trinomial. So number 2, you cannot factor that using these terms. And number 3, it is in fact a perfect square trinomial of x minus 7 squared. All right, so I hope you got these correct.